Anthony, what are the biggest mistakes you see people making when they adopt a carnivore diet?
Well, sometimes they may misunderstand exactly what we mean by a carnivore diet. Maybe they just think should eat a lot more meat and maybe less of other things, which is great. I think that's a very, very good thing to do. You're going to improve your health a lot. You're going to be getting a lot of nutrients that you may have been deficient in previously, especially when we start eating a lot of fatty meat. The fat's an essential nutrient; it's not just calories. Um, but when we when people talk about the different results that they get on a carnivore diet, it can be quite discouraging when people don't get similar results. And one of the ways they won't get those similar results is if they're not doing a similar thing. If they're not actually just eating meat and only drinking water, they're still sort of drinking maybe on the weekends or once a month, or if they're drinking coffee every day or still having some fruits and vegetables and different sorts of things like that, that can limit the amount of benefit they get from it. They'll still get a lot of benefit. Just eating clean foods, whole foods, and focusing on meat will benefit you a lot. But it makes a huge difference if you really just cut down to bare bones, just meat and just water. I think that makes a huge difference. And another one is just not eating enough in general, because your hunger signals can be very, very subtle on a carnivore diet. When you eat carbohydrates, it makes us think that we're hungry. It just changes us hormonally and signals our brain that we actually need more energy than we do. And so we overeat, and we have these very loud hunger signals that are saying, eat, eat, eat. We're starving. We have to eat. And when you get rid of carbohydrates, your insulin goes down, and your brain can see its leptin because insulin blocks leptin. Then you get much more subtle hunger signals. Now you may be hungry, but it's such a smaller signal than what it used to be that you may not actually notice it. And so people easily undereat. And so I think that's something that people need to focus on and understand, that you have to relearn your hunger signals. And one of the best ways of doing that is going by taste. If you're only eating meat and only drinking water, not using any sweeteners or carbs or anything like that, then you really can listen to those signals. And if you're getting if meat tastes good, then you're getting that positive feedback from that experience. Then I think that's your body telling you that it wants more of that. And the difference between something unhealthy and addictive giving you positive feedback and something healthy and good for you like meat giving you positive feedback is that something that's bad for you and addictive will keep giving positive feedback even if you keep doing it. Whereas if something like meat will actually get lower and lower and lower positive feedback until you get no positive feedback. And then your body just says, we actually don't want this anymore. So your taste will be very indicative of this. It will taste very good, and then it'll taste less good and less good and less good. And eventually you'll get to the point where you're like, I'm not really enjoying this. I just don't want to eat anymore. And you just naturally stop. So I think people should get to that point, eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good. But you shouldn't force yourself. You shouldn't have to, not enjoy your food. But you should keep eating it if you do enjoy it, if that makes sense.
In that latter piece there, I'll just jump in real quick before we move on. It seems like when we get the hang of it and we learn the more subtle nuance of our hunger, if we make that switch to a primarily meat or an all meat diet, it seems like it'll really simplify things. If you have
Yeah.
carbohydrates in the mix, especially some that are processed, then you kind of need to start looking at how much I'm eating because of that addiction piece and that hunger signal being thrown askew.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then you have to get out the calculator and the equations and figure out your macros and your micros, and you have to do all that sort of stuff. Well, whereas animals in the wild, they eat intuitively. They eat while things taste good, and they know when to stop. They don't have a health coach telling them how to count their macros and how to calculate out their ins and outs and things like that. They just know. And so biologically we should be able to do that as well if we're eating what we're designed to eat. And that's a good sign that we're not eating what we're supposed to eat if we do have to break out the calculators and the equations. So that's what I think is the amazing things about this, is that you can eat intuitively, and that goes with our biology, because this is biologically what we're designed to eat. And so we get these biological signals that just work, and they just play out. And you're right, it's really the easiest way of eating that there is. You know exactly what you can eat, exactly what you can't eat, right? You just eat meat, you don't eat anything else, right? And you don't have to count calories, count macros, limit yourself in any way. You just eat when you're hungry. You eat until you're full, and I go by taste. So you eat until things stop tasting good. So it always tastes good. You don't have to eat if it doesn't taste good, and people freak out by that because they're used to eating 3 times a day or even 6 times a day with snacks and things like that. You don't have to do that. I eat once a day naturally. That's when I'm hungry, and I eat until I'm full, and then I'm not hungry anymore after that. So if you're not hungry and meat doesn't taste good, don't eat. You also don't have to time it. I was like, well, I need to have this window and in this morning and every 2 hours and every 3 and not before bed. You don't have to do any of that. You can eat any time of the day or night, whatever makes you feel good, whatever works for you. I eat generally right before I go to sleep or later in the evening anyway. The problem with eating later on in the day or closer to bed when we eat traditionally is that you can mess with a lot of your hormones in your circadian rhythm. When you eat carbohydrates, insulin goes up. Insulin blocks the secretion and utilization and action of growth hormone, which is maximally secreted after we go to sleep while we're sleeping, and that's a very important hormone for aging, repair, and regeneration of your body. And you're going to interrupt those actions. And then melatonin also interferes with insulin. You get all that insulin resistance and things like that. So there's a lot of weird things that go on when you start screwing with your hormones. But when you're just eating meat, you're not going to kick off your insulin. You're not going to disrupt the rest of your hormones. It's actually very natural for you to go to sleep after you eat. This is what happens in the wild. An animal takes down a kill. A lion eats a gazelle, and then it sleeps for 14 hours. Right. And this is a normal thing because you've got the majority of a large portion of your blood supply going to your digestive tract to digest this food and absorb it and utilize it. So that's not in your brain and your muscles. You're naturally going to be tired and more lethargic. And you go into a rest and digest mode. Your body says, if you think about this from just a biological standpoint, your body's giving you energy so you can go out and you can face your day, you can hunt, you can kill, you can mate, you can raise your kids and defend your family. And one of the major things is getting food. And when you get your food, you get your nutrients for the day, your body says, okay, well, hey, let's calm this down. Let's conserve energy and rest and digest. We don't want to waste energy. You waste energy in the wild, you die. And so our bodies are very, very adapted to conserving energy when and where we have to. And that's one of them. So you eat a big meal and your body just goes, right, we don't need to go around hunting and chasing after things. Let's just chill out. And so you naturally want to go to sleep. And so, so it's very, very easy. It's very intuitive, and you can just listen to your body.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
No animal eats the variety of plants that we do. And I think that's causing and driving most of the modern non-communicable chronic diseases that we face these days. It is the complete elimination diet.